seen lately?
Well, I think we need to talk about Iron Man 3.
I think so. That's a good idea.
Kind of goes along with the theme of today's episode. Obviously, very popular worldwide so far. Reviewed very well amongst critics, and it earns it. I think it's probably my favorite of the series.
Wow.
To be honest. I thought 2 was better in many ways than the first, but still kind of lacking in a really decent villain, I think. I mean, that's one thing we've always kind of said about the Iron Man franchise is like, is there really a villain that can sort of get to Tony Stark's level? I kind of think they did it in this one.
I was happy with the villain in this one. I've been very critical of their villains in the past because it's literally always another dude in a suit.
Right.
That's it. And it's a dude in a bigger suit.
Right.
Or he has a lot of them.
Right.
And it's like, I will say, I think I liked Iron Man 1 just a little bit better than this one, just a little bit. But I really loved this one.
Yeah.
And what I loved about it was they kind of went back to what they missed in Iron Man 2. Because Iron Man 2 was a lot of like, look at how sad Tony Stark is.
The suit is so bad and the government wants it, but they can't have it. But
I know.
They can get it.
I know.
Yeah.
It was weird. But I really liked this one. I loved that they kind of talked about the whole idea of what it actually takes to be a superhero and have the people depend on you, and what if you're not up for it, and that sort of thing. And what do you do when you have all these near-death experiences? How does that affect you?
Right.
It forgot about that.
It did.
About two-thirds of the way through the movie.
It did, yeah.
It made a big deal about it in a couple of scenes, and then it was just like, he's fine now.
Well, they kind of do that as far as they can without introducing the alcoholic Tony Stark, which is a huge part of the comics. And that's not a spoiler. They've been talking about that in interviews. Essentially, this is a Disney property. They're not, well, it's Paramount's, but Disney, Marvel, blah, blah, blah. They have a saying in it. And so basically, I would imagine Shane Black, the director, I'm pretty sure I've read that he was just like, yeah, we totally wanted to do that, but they wouldn't allow us to do that. So they kind of deal with that. Again, up until like the last third of the movie, and you're just kind of like, oh yeah, that one thing that he was really bothered about doesn't seem to be an issue.
All those massive panic attacks he was having that like just totally debilitated him. Right. Don't worry about it.
And then there's even a thing towards the end of the movie that would totally cause that to just, and it just like, nope. It's whatever. So, I mean, if I were to be really sort of critical of the movie, I would say that's like the most glaring thing about it. But what I really, really liked about this movie was that you get plenty of Iron Man like flying around doing stuff, but you get so much more Robert Downey Jr. in this movie than the other two combined.
Yeah.
You get him out of the suit, and it's just like, you're paying for Robert Downey Jr. Yeah. You should be getting Robert Downey Jr., not a guy in a suit, or like his face mask up.
Yeah.
Like they totally took advantage of this.
Well, it really covered like something that, the new last Batman movie covered, and one of the other recent superhero movies covered, of like, I'm a little broken. I don't have all the gadgets that I used to have, all the powers that I used to have. Because, he does spend, this might be a spoiler, I don't know. He does spend most of the movie without a fully functional suit.
Right. Yeah,
and that's interesting.
I mean, it's he's got a lot of them. That's sort of the joke. He has all these suits because it seems like he's just trying to find the perfect suit to basically never have what happens in the Avengers happen ever again.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, and it becomes very obvious that he has a lot of the suits, which I think a lot of the fans of the franchise will appreciate. Although you don't really sort of get to see what each suit does.
That's something that I'm wondering about. I don't read the Iron Man comics. I don't know if. I know you read them. I don't know if you read them or not. It seemed like all of those suits were like a little note to fans, they were. Oh, was this one was in issue this one, and it did this, and it was only there for one issue, but we've got it because we see like 100 suits in this film.
Yeah, well, there's 46, I think, is the number in the movie.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is.
It's in the 40s, so there's definitely 40 some odd suits, and there are definitely different variations of the suit, minute, but then there's some that are like crazy and like they should never be used, but and that's the whole point, is just like they're just expendable at a certain point. What I really liked about the movie was that there was a lot of collateral damage. It wasn't too afraid to go and sort of like really scary territory. And ironically enough, with what happened in Boston, it kind of rang a bell a little bit. There's a scene in the movie that I was just like, oh, they couldn't have, and this sounds bad, they couldn't have timed that any better.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to hit people in a certain way. Not, not to say that's a good thing, but I was just kind of like, oh, that's so like poignant to what's going on right now. And I think that's the point. I mean, they create this villain that's like, out there that people are going to be immediately get a thought process about, and I thought they did a pretty good job with that. One thing, and this is a thought that I had sort of in the middle of the movie, they definitely used Don Cheadle pretty well in the movie. But one of the things I thought about with it being Shane Black, this is essentially a Lethal Weapon movie set in the Marvel Universe. And I was like, I wish I would have thought about this before, because now I want to go back and watch it and be like, because a lot of the movie you do sort of see him out of the suit, but then you realize it's a white guy and a black guy running around with guns. And all these, there's like a crazy hundreds of bad guys in this like scene, and they somehow manage to lay waste to all of them. And I'm just like, if he doesn't slam his shoulder up against a wall, this won't be worth it. But I kind of thought that, and I thought, this is the most brilliant, way of going about it. Because, I mean, he wrote he was a writer on the movie too. So I was just kind of like, this is great. And when we do another Christmas episode, Iron Man 3 is a Christmas movie.
Yes, it is.
It's just like, of course he's going to put that in there because that's just what he does. But I just had that thought process, and I thought, this is so awesome.
Well, I don't want to belie the way you introduced me as this kind of populist film scholar who loves, genre films and things like that. So, unfortunately, I have to kind of, be the film snob here. But I did not like the movie. I don't know if you guys saw my little Facebook blurb about it, but I didn't think the movie was terrible. I really enjoyed the first Iron Man movie, and I enjoyed the Avengers. Did not like Iron Man 2 at all. I thought this one was better than Iron Man 2. But not nearly as good as Iron Man 3. And I, I'll start by saying some nice things about the movie and the franchise. I love Robert Downey Jr. as a star. I think he's been great in all three of the Iron Man movies. I think he's, just endlessly charming in Iron Man 3. I love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is the movie that Shane Black made previously with Robert Downey Jr., which was sort of one of the comeback roles for Robert Downey Jr. And I like Lethal Weapon.
Sure.
But I wanted to see an Iron Man movie in the kind of Marvel, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby tradition. And it really just seemed like it was a Robert Downey Jr. action comedy. And, your point about it feeling like a Lethal Weapon movie, it to me felt like an 80s buddy movie. And I kept thinking, get the Spielberg kid out of there, put him back in the suit, give me the alcoholic Tony Stark, give me the dark kind of superhero crisis. I want to see him really broken. And it just seemed like the kind of post-traumatic stress disorder thing was just kind of shoehorned in there, and they kind of just nodded to it. But it wasn't really the crisis that you get in the Nolan Batman movies. And the trailer really made it look like this is like a dark Iron Man movie. And so, I didn't think it was terrible, but about halfway through, I was just like, this is not the Iron Man movie for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think at some point I just sort of realized that I wasn't going to get what, and I think because I read a lot about the movie, I didn't actually know a ton about the details, but I just sort of knew, okay, well, we're not going to get the alcoholic Tony Stark, so they're definitely not going that direction. That would have been, I think Shane Black could have totally knocked that out of the park if he was basically allowed permission to do that. Still make a very funny and entertaining movie. There's a lot of subtlety, like a lot of things that he's like, like he talks about, like he stays up all night because he can't sleep. Right. I'm just assuming that he's getting hammered and basically designing things. Yeah. And, his computers are essentially keeping him, company and going. So I'm just sort of imagining all that stuff sort of off camera. I would have loved to see it though. So I kind of let that expectation, I left that at home and was just like, okay, what are you going to deliver without that? So definitely. I don't know. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I'll probably see it again in theaters.
I don't think I'll see it again in theaters. I'll probably get the DVD, the Blu-ray, whatever. Sure. And I think I said this last year. I didn't love the Avengers. Yeah. I thought I liked this a lot better than the Avengers, I have to say. But this movie does make me want to go back and watch the Avengers again.
Sure.
A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.